Picture this: Florence, 1513. Niccolò Machiavelli sits in exile, stripped of power, tortured by his enemies, watching his political world collapse around him. Yet from this darkness, he pens The Prince, a masterpiece born not from comfort, but from the very crucible of adversity. How does a man facing complete ruin maintain such clarity of thought that he creates one of history's most influential works? The answer lies in 13 timeless principles that separate those who panic from those who prevail. These aren't mere philosophical concepts. They're battle-tested strategies for keeping your composure when the stakes are highest. In the theater of power, reaction is weakness disguised as passion. When you react, you show that another man controls your emotions, and therefore controls you. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this truth centuries ago. The man who speaks first in anger has already surrendered his throne. Calmness is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of it. To remain calm when others provoke you is not cowardice, it is strategy. When the crowd screams, when the enemy insults, when chaos tempts you to speak, that is the moment you must become still. Watch them, study them, let their anger reveal their hand. Because the man who loses his calm reveals everything: his fears, his insecurities, his desires. The calm man, however, reveals nothing. He becomes a mirror in which the fool exposes himself. Machiavelli once wrote that appearances govern the world more than truth. And what is a calm face in a storm, if not the perfect appearance of control? Imagine this: two rivals face each other. One trembles, his voice raised, his words sharp and desperate. The other remains silent, composed, eyes steady. Tell me, which one truly holds power? People mistake reaction for strength. They think the loudest is the most confident, the fastest speaker the most intelligent. But the Machiavellian knows the truth. The strongest man in any room is the one who can wait. He is not pulled by impulse. He chooses his moment. Every second you pause before reacting adds to your authority. That silence between provocation and response, that tiny moment, is where real control lies. It is in that gap that leaders are made and fools are unmasked. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them try to provoke you again and again. The longer you remain still, the more their confidence collapses. They will begin to question themselves. Why isn't he reacting? Did I fail to reach him? Is he stronger than I thought? You've already won, not through action, but through restraint. Machiavelli understood the psychology of enemies. He knew that most men crave reaction because it gives them reassurance. It tells them they have power over you. When you deny them that satisfaction, they feel lost. Their aggression turns to confusion, and confusion turns to fear. The one who can stay calm, who speaks little but with precision, becomes a mystery, and mystery breeds influence. Do you know why the most dangerous predators in nature move slowly? Because they are never rushed by emotion. They don't reveal intent. They don't waste energy proving anything. They wait until the prey exposes itself, and then they strike once, calmly, efficiently, completely. This is how the Machiavellian handles conflict. He watches the anger of others as a scientist observes an experiment, detached, calculating. When the time is right, he speaks, and when he does, his words cut deeper than any shout ever could. Think of every time you've lost your temper. Did it ever make you stronger? Did it ever bring respect? Or did it only make you seem unstable, easy to manipulate? Your enemies want you to react because a reaction is predictable. But silence terrifies them. It makes them question what you know that they don't. In politics, in love, in business, in war, the first to lose control is always the first to lose power. The calm man has the advantage of seeing all the moves before making his own. The impulsive man, blinded by emotion, sees only the moment. He acts without foresight, and as Machiavelli warned, he who acts without foresight digs his own grave with his hands. So when someone provokes you, when they insult you, mock you, or try to expose your weakness, Understand that they are trying to pull you down to their level. Do not join them in the mud. Rise above them with your stillness. Watch them struggle to make you break character. The moment you don't, you've already asserted dominance. A ruler who reacts loses the obedience of his court. A leader who stays calm gains the loyalty of even his enemies. People trust those who cannot be shaken. They follow those who seem untouchable by emotion. Because calmness, when seen by others, appears like strength born from something divine. Never react first, not because you are afraid, but because you are calculating. Because every reaction is an opening, and every opening can be used against you. When you remain calm, you deny the world access to your mind. You become unrateable, and the unrateable are always feared, always respected, and always in control. In a world that glorifies speed, only the foolish move too fast. They rush to respond, rush to act, rush to decide, as if haste itself were a virtue. But the Machiavellian knows better. The man who masters the art of delay is the man who commands time itself. When you delay, you do not procrastinate. You calculate. You observe the board before making your move. You allow the chaos to reveal its pattern. Because time, my friend, is not your enemy. It is your silent strategist. Those who wait in silence often see what others, blinded by urgency, never notice. Think of it like this: two generals face each other before a battle. One charges in fury, eager to prove his strength. The other waits. He studies the wind, the terrain, the fear in the enemy's eyes. He waits until the sun blinds his opponent, until the enemy's energy fades. Then, and only then, he strikes. Who do you think wins that war? The one who ran first, or the one who delayed with purpose? Machiavelli understood that time is not a straight line. It's a weapon. When you wait, you stretch it. You bend it to your advantage. Impatient people believe action alone brings victory. But the wise know that patience builds invisible power. Power that others cannot measure until it's too late. Every man you meet will try to pull you into their rhythm. They'll pressure you to react, to decide now, to move on their terms. Resist this. Every second you hold back, you take power away from them and reclaim it for yourself. Because he who dictates the pace of a conversation, of a negotiation, of a conflict, dictates its outcome. Delay is not inaction. It is the sharpening of the blade before the strike. A rushed response dulls your edge. When you speak too soon, you speak without full knowledge. When you act too fast, you act without full control. The Machiavellian waits, not because he is afraid, but because he knows that patience allows the truth to expose itself. Watch what happens when you stop rushing. Others begin to reveal themselves. The impatient expose their motives. The emotional expose their weaknesses. The desperate expose their fear. The longer you wait, the more power you gain without lifting a finger. And when you finally act, it feels inevitable, unstoppable, final. Most people live as slaves to urgency. They panic when things slow down. They fear silence as if nothing happening means nothing existing. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is observation. It is gathering strength. The calm man who delays understands that every storm burns itself out. You just have to wait until the sky clears, and then the battlefield belongs to you. There's a saying from the Italian courts Machiavelli served in: the man who rushes to answer a question will later wish he had waited to hear the rest of it. That is true power, not to be first, but to be final. To let others exhaust themselves in haste while you preserve your energy for the decisive moment. When your enemy expects you to react immediately, and you don't, you confuse him. He starts questioning his own plan. Did I misjudge him? Is he planning something? His own imagination becomes your weapon. Delay becomes psychological warfare. You make him live in uncertainty while you sit in control, even in everyday life, in arguments, in decisions, in business. The principle remains. Do not be seduced by the illusion of urgency. Nothing truly important demands immediate reaction. If it's real, it will still be real tomorrow. But your response, if given with patience, will be far stronger, far colder, far more precise. Machiavelli once said that fortune favors those who are prepared, and preparation requires time. To delay is to prepare in silence, while others rush into traps. The world belongs to those who see not the moment, but the pattern that moments create. To delay is to dominate time. To dominate time is to dominate men. When you wait with purpose, when you stretch each pause into power, when you allow silence to speak louder than words, you become dangerous. Because the world cannot predict a man who does not rush. It cannot rid a man who does not chase. It cannot conquer a man who moves only when he chooses. Machiavelli understood something most men never learn, that the moment you argue with a fool, you descend to his level, and there he will defeat you through experience. The fool does not seek truth, he seeks attention. He doesn't want to learn, he wants to provoke. His strength lies not in logic, but in chaos. And when you engage him, you trade your calmness for his confusion. The fool is not always loud. Sometimes he hides behind clever words, sarcasm, or self-righteousness. He baits you into proving yourself, making you believe that winning the argument will earn you respect. But you cannot win with someone who has already chosen blindness. You cannot teach a man who loves his ignorance. You cannot reason with one who has no shame in being wrong. The Machiavellian never wastes energy on this battlefield. He knows that every moment spent arguing with a fool is a moment stolen from strategy, from creation, from silent dominance. The wise man observes, the fool reacts. The wise man plans, the fool performs. The difference between them is not intelligence. It is discipline. When a fool challenges you, he's not attacking your argument. He's attacking your peace. He wants to drag you into the mud, because that's where he feels comfortable. And when you step down to his level, you legitimize his existence. You tell the world, this man is worth my time. But the Machiavellian knows that silence humiliates louder than any rebuttal. Imagine standing before a crowd. A fool screams your name, throws insults, mocks your words. All eyes turn to you, waiting for your retaliation. But you do not move. You do not speak. You look once with calm disdain and return to your thoughts. That single act, that restraint, destroys him more completely than 1,000 arguments ever could. Because fools thrive on reaction. When you give them none, they suffocate. Machiavelli taught that power is perception. If you appear easily provoked, you appear weak. If you appear calm and indifferent, you appear in control. When you argue, you reveal emotion. When you ignore, you reveal superiority. Your silence becomes a wall they cannot climb. The fool feeds on drama. He measures victory not by truth, but by noise. The louder the exchange, the stronger he feels. But the Machiavellian understands that in the court of reason, silence is the loudest verdict. Let the fool expose his emptiness with his own words. Let the crowd see his lack of substance through his endless noise. Every word he utters digs his own grave deeper. Sometimes fools come disguised as friends. They question your every move, not to understand, but to challenge. They cloak their insecurity in the language of advice. They mock ambition and ridicule discipline. If you argue with them, you give them what they crave, validation. But when you smile and move on, you remind them that they are beneath the weight of your purpose. This lesson is not just political, it's psychological warfare. The fool's mission is to break your rhythm, to make you react emotionally so you lose focus. The Machiavellian's mission is the opposite, to preserve his rhythm no matter the provocation. You are not obligated to correct stupidity. You are obligated to protect your calm. The greatest kings, the most cunning generals, the shrewdest thinkers, all understood this rule. They never fought unnecessary battles. They never wasted arrows on shadows. They let time silence and results destroy their critics. Because nothing silences a fool like watching the man he mocked rise higher than him. Machiavelli would say, never interrupt your enemy while he's making a mistake. The fool's voice is his own trap. Let him speak. Let him show the world who he is. Your reaction only hides his foolishness. Your silence exposes it. And here lies the hidden art, the art of indifference. To remain unmoved when attacked by ignorance. To be calm not because you are weak, but because you have already seen the outcome. Every fool will eventually reveal himself. You need only wait. So when you encounter a fool, online, in conversation, in life, remember this. You don't owe him a reaction. You don't owe him correction. Let him talk. Let him twist his words into knots. While he burns in the fire of his own arrogance, you will remain untouched, serene, and untouchable, exactly as Machiavelli intended his students to be. The face is a mask, and those who cannot control it cannot control their destiny. The eyes betray the mind long before the mouth speaks. A flicker of anger, a twitch of fear, a tremor of doubt. These are all confessions written on the human face. The Machiavellian understands this weakness, and he trains it out of himself until his expression becomes his greatest weapon. To remain calm inside is strength, but to appear calm when chaos burns inside you, that is mastery. The man who controls his face controls the perceptions of others. The world believes what it sees before it believes what it hears. So if your face reveals nothing, they will believe you fear nothing. Watch those around you when tension rises. Most people are slaves to their own expression. Their face changes with every emotion: anger, fear, jealousy, anxiety. You can read them like open books. That is why they are predictable, easy to manipulate. But the Machiavellian face is unreadable. It gives nothing away, not even to allies, especially not to enemies. Machiavelli advised princes to conceal their intentions beneath appearances, to smile while plotting, to nod while disagreeing, to appear merciful while planning vengeance. Because the world judges by the eyes, not by the heart. The calm face is a disguise of steel. It tells nothing, yet commands everything. Imagine being in a negotiation. The other side expects a reaction. A twitch of discomfort, a flash of surprise, a nervous smile. But your face remains still, your eyes unshaken, your breath steady. They grow uneasy. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what secret advantage you hold. Their imagination begins to betray them, creating monsters that do not exist. You've already won, without a word. This is why Machiavelli taught that power begins with illusion. The illusion of calmness, the illusion of certainty, the illusion of control. When others see no weakness in your expression, they invent none in your character. They begin to see you as something more. Someone they cannot read, cannot predict, cannot defeat. To train your face, you must first master your emotions. You cannot hide what controls you. Learn to observe your anger instead of obeying it. Learn to smile when others would frown. Learn to breathe when others break. With every moment of stillness, your face becomes a fortress, a mask that hides every storm within. There is an art to the Machiavellian smile, not one of joy, but of control. It is calm, faint, deliberate. It doesn't reveal what it means. It makes others question whether you know something they don't. The subtle smile of a man who has already seen the outcome. That is not a smile of kindness. It is a smile of dominance. Machiavelli lived among courts of deception, where a single expression could determine life or death. He watched men destroyed not by their enemies, but by their own faces. The ones who looked afraid were devoured. The ones who looked too confident were challenged. Only those who appeared unreadable survived. The lesson remains the same today. When your emotions are visible, you are vulnerable. When your face reveals nothing, you become untouchable. Think of your face as a mask in a theater of power. Every scene demands a different act. Calm when you're angry, attentive when you're bored, sympathetic when you're disgusted. The performance must be flawless. Because once your mask cracks, your enemies will see the real you, and the game is over. The fool shouts, the average man argues, the wise man watches, but the Machiavellian smiles. That faint, knowing expression disarms opponents and unsettles rivals. It makes the crowd believe you are always one step ahead. The less you show, the more they project. The less you reveal, the more they respect. And the secret is simple. They will never fear what they understand. They will only fear what they cannot read. Your calm face, your still eyes, your silence, they create mystery. And mystery, Machiavelli knew, is the purest form of power. In politics, in love, in friendship, betrayal is not the exception, it is the rule. And yet, the weak still build their calm upon the illusion of trust. They believe that promises are sacred, that loyalty is eternal, that bonds of affection cannot break. But the Machiavellian sees the truth. Loyalty exists only when it is convenient. When power shifts, so does devotion. When profit fades, so does faith. To expect otherwise is to walk into the lion's den and call it friendship. The calm man is not calm because the world is kind to him. He is calm because he expects the knife before it arrives. He studies human nature and sees it for what it is: fickle, fearful, and selfish. This understanding protects him. When betrayal comes, it does not shock him. It does not anger him. It only confirms what he already knew. Machiavelli learned this from princes who lost their thrones not by open war, but by the soft smiles of those closest to them. Servants who whispered loyalty by day and plotted by night. Friends who feasted beside them and sold them to enemies. The wise prince, Machiavelli taught, never sleeps with both eyes closed. His calm is not nama vipeace. It is awareness sharpened by disappointment. Most people build their peace on trust. The Machiavellian builds his peace on foresight. He is kind but never blind, generous but never vulnerable. He gives loyalty, but never depends on receiving it. And because he expects betrayal, no betrayal can destroy him. When it arrives, he greets it like an old acquaintance, one he has prepared for patiently. Betrayal is not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the tone of a friend's voice, in a missing promise, in an unexplained distance. The average man panics when he senses it. He confronts, accuses, reacts. The Machiavellian observes. He collects proof in silence. He studies the shift in loyalty and prepares his counter long before the traitor knows he's been seen. Calmness here becomes armor, the stillness before the strike. Machiavelli would remind his students that even betrayal has use. It reveals truth faster than friendship ever could. It strips illusion and exposes the true hierarchy of values. Every betrayal you endure teaches you how to read the human soul more clearly. The calm man takes these lessons not as wounds, but as wisdom. The greatest danger is not betrayal itself, but emotional shock. It is the storm that follows, the outrage, the heartbreak, the disbelief. That is what destroys kings, not the traitor's blade. The Machiavellian prepares for this storm before it arrives. His calmness is built like a fortress, layer upon layer of realism. He knows that people act out of need, not loyalty, out of fear, not gratitude. So when they turn, he remains unmoved. He understands that betrayal is simply human nature seeking advantage. Why rage against what is natural? Better to study it, predict it, and even use it. A wise man lets betrayal shape his strategy. Every deceiver reveals how far men will go when tempted. Every betrayal maps the limits of trust. And with every lesson, the Machiavellian becomes harder to fool, harder to break. Look around you. Most people cannot handle disappointment because they build emotional castles on sand. They take words as contracts, affection as assurance. Then, when the inevitable betrayal comes, they collapse, bitter, broken, loud. The calm man, on the other hand, stands amidst the ruins untouched. His castle is made of stone, the stone of understanding that people will always serve their own interest first. To expect betrayal is not cynicism, it is wisdom. It frees you from surprise, from panic, from despair. It allows you to see clearly, to act intelligently, to stay composed when others fall apart. Machiavelli would say, "He who sees the world as it is, not as he wishes it to be, will never be ruled by it." The calm man does not seek purity in others. He seeks predictability. He knows that betrayal, like the changing of seasons, is inevitable. And just as winter cannot harm the man who has prepared his fire, betrayal cannot touch the one who foresaw it. The fool loses himself in the shock of deceit. The wise man nods quietly and adjusts his crown. You see, most people spend their lives fortifying everything around them: their possessions, their image, their relationships, their reputation. They gather layers of defense, desperate to feel secure. Yet, the moment life strikes, a betrayal, a failure, a loss, they collapse. Because their strength was borrowed. Their peace depended on things they could not control. The Machiavellian knows better. He understands that true calm does not come from the world outside, but from the fortress he builds inside himself. It is a stronghold made not of stone, but of self-control. Its walls are discipline. Its gates are wisdom. Its foundation is emotional detachment. When a man constructs such a fortress within, no storm can breach it. Machiavelli observed that the downfall of rulers often came from their dependence on external things. Mercenaries for armies, courtiers for counsel, lovers for peace. The moment those pillars shifted, everything collapsed. But a man whose foundation is internal does not tremble when the world shakes. His calmness is not borrowed. It is earned. To build a fortress within is to learn to live without relying on reassurance. To know who you are when everything is taken away. It is to train yourself to stay unmoved when insulted, unbroken when betrayed, and undistracted when flattered. Because calmness is not the absence of conflict. It is the mastery of reaction. The man who possesses this inner fortress walks through chaos as though it was silence. Every insult thrown at him echoes off invisible walls. Every failure that breaks others becomes his lesson. He is no longer shaken by praise or criticism because both are meaningless to the man who defines himself. Machiavelli would say, "He who depends on the world for peace gives the world power to destroy it." The Machiavellian gives no such permission. Think about how most people live. Their happiness rises and falls with circumstances. They feel powerful when others approve and crushed when they don't. But what happens when their support vanishes? Their world crumbles. The man who builds his fortress within never faces that collapse. His strength comes from a place that no one can reach. His own understanding, his own control, his own mind. The fortress within is not cold or emotionless. It is simply disciplined. It allows you to feel emotion without being ruled by it. To care without being consumed. To act without being reactive. It's the kind of calm that unnerves people because it cannot be manipulated. When they cannot make you angry, they lose their weapon. When they cannot make you beg for validation, they lose their power. Machiavelli's philosophy teaches that the highest form of independence is psychological. When you are no longer moved by external chaos, you become untouchable. You stop trying to control the world, and instead, you control your response to it. You stop needing things to go right, and instead, you learn to remain right when things go wrong. That is the core of inner fortitude, to exist in balance while everything else burns. The walls of this internal fortress are built through solitude, reflection, and self-discipline. You must learn to sit with yourself, to analyze your fears instead of running from them, to master your impulses instead of obeying them. Every time you choose silence over reaction, patience over panic, composure over complaint, you add another stone to your fortress. And when you've built it strong enough, you'll notice something remarkable. The world begins to move around you, not against you. You stop fighting battles that don't deserve your time. You stop chasing validation that weakens your soul. You stop fearing outcomes because you realize your peace does not depend on them. That is when true calmness begins. When you no longer chase protection, because you have already become it. In this state, betrayal becomes expected, failure becomes temporary, and chaos becomes irrelevant. The world outside may rage, But inside your fortress, there is silence. The silence of power, the silence of control, the silence of understanding that nothing external can disturb what is internally fortified. Machiavelli would tell his students that this kind of peace is not passive, it is political. Because when a man cannot be shaken, he cannot be ruled. And that, he believed, is the essence of true sovereignty, to rule the self before trying to rule the world. In the end, Machiavelli's philosophy on calmness is not about stillness. It's about supremacy over self. It is the transformation of emotion into strategy, of reaction into control, of pain into discipline. Calmness, in the Machiavellian sense, is not softness. It is silent strength, a weapon forged in solitude and sharpened by experience. When you learn to master your calm, you no longer play the game the same way as others. You stop being predictable. You stop being manipulated. You stop being emotionally enslaved by the noise of the world. Instead, you operate from the shadows, steady, unreadable, and deliberate. That's when power begins to bend in your direction. Machiavelli understood that the man who rules himself rules all. His calmness is his fortress, his patience his sword, his silence his crown. Others panic in chaos. He thrives in it. Others speak to prove strength. He speaks only to control outcomes. Others seek peace outside. He builds it within. And that is the essence of Machiavellian calmness, not the absence of emotion, but the dominance of it. Not detachment from life, but mastery over it. The calm man walks through storms with a steady gaze, while the rest are swept away by their own impulses. Because in the end, power doesn't belong to the loud, the impulsive, or the reckless. It belongs to the one who stays calm, the one who observes, waits, and acts when the moment is ripe. That's not just control. That's sovereignty. That's Machiavellian mastery, where calmness becomes the highest form of power.